Hello everyone, Ayden Ka here. So this is going to be a different video because I'm going to be testing some painting stuff and it's a lot to get through. So let's just get started. The things that I want to test for painting is mainly I want to test all these paints that I have here in front of me because it's the main ones that I plan on using, alongside some no, they're not gadgets, they're consumables for painting. But they're very different consumables, so that I found online and on a bunch of sites, right? So let's get started with the testing that I'm going to be doing. To begin with, I'm going to be testing this airbrush. So this is the Gaahleri Mobius 0.3 millimeters airbrush, and I've already tested it. But I did something that I shouldn't have done with it, and I'll tell you here in a second. But it did completely well. So I've already done some painting with it, but I have not laid down any actual color paint with it. So I need to test that. And on the paints that I want to test with it are Mr. Hobby line of paint. So the primer, that's going to be one, and the paint that goes with it. The reason I want to test Mr. Hobby is because all the Kotobukiya kits that I have, they have a list of, and some of the Gundams too, have a list of paints, and they're all in Mr. Hobby coloring scheme. So I absolutely want to try and use Mr. Hobby whenever possible. The other line of paint that I want to test is Tamiya, because this is the most readily available paint that I have here. I'm not from the United States, so this is going to be the most readily available for me. This one. So that would be the primer for Tamiya. And then I also have another line of paint available to me if I buy it from AliExpress, which is Dspiae paint. So Dspiae is supposed to be an acrylic paint, and it's but it doesn't quite smell like acrylic. So I'm wondering if it's an acrylic hybrid, like Tamiya. So that's why I have this thinner over here. In case that I do need to use an acrylic thinner, I'll use that. In the case of Tamiya and Mr. Hobby, I'm gonna be using the Mr.Color leveling thinner. And I want to spray everything through the 0.3 Mobius. The reason that, even the primers, because the reason being that I accidentally, I was gonna use a 0.5 needle to push through all this primer for Mr. Hobby, but I put it on the 0.3, so I put it on this one, and it did well. I'll show you some examples of how it did in a bit. Let me go through the rest of the things that I have here. So let me put everything to the side. Okay, so for all the other things that I have here, I'm gonna show you some of the paint testing cards that I have. So over here I have the Dspiae. It doesn't say it on the box, it says. So this is the Dspiae color test cards, and the way they look is like this. So this is the card that you get. It's on the three basic primer colors, being black, gray, white. These are nice. I like them because you get all the colors on one single card. So that's nice. But I also have these other two over here. So these are Hobby Mio. And they come in two types of colors. You can see black and white, and then gray and pink. So these look like this over here. So these will be the cards. These are also nice because they have much more surface area, right? So it's easier to see the color. Not that it's difficult on the Dspiae, but this will be a little bit easier. And then, so those are the three cards that I have. And then I also have some other things to test paints, but these are now plastic. So from Dspiae also, I have the corgi butts. So these corgi butts, they come in male and female version. There's no necessity for that, but I guess if you don't want to be using spoons, you can use something like this, right? So this in specific are corgi butts, and they come in these three colors. I'm not gonna be using the clears right now, but I thought that this was a really nice touch, I guess, that you can have transparent corgi butts. So, and then you have the black ones and the white ones, right? They're pretty neat. They're gloss finish, obviously. I'm not going to try and I'm not gonna try and sand this and then do all the priming. They're supposed to be ready to paint. And then I also have these little signposts, this little, I don't know what to call them. I guess if I read, I would know, but I cannot read Japanese, and these are from Japan. So these ones, this little signpost, if you can kind of see, they are divided in 4. So you have a flat surface on the bottom and a rounded surface on the top. But on the right side, you have flat, and then you have gloss on the left. So you are supposed to be able to get all kinds of finishes with just one little signpost palette thing. So it is better than a spoon in that sense, because you get multiple finishes, and yeah. But they are a bit more expensive, right? So you're supposed to use this not for any random testing, but more so for whenever you have a color and you want to get a reference to how that color looks on plastic, then you do this, right? If you're going to be doing a bunch of testing, random testing, I don't think this would be the option. The corgi bots might be, because they're cheap, but they're from China, so they're going to take a couple weeks to arrive, depending on where you live. So earlier I was saying that I already did some painting. With the Mobius, and I accidentally, because I was meant to put it on a 0.5 needle gun that I have, airbrush I should say. So I was meant to put it on a 0.5 airbrush, but I put it on the Mobius, and it sprayed completely fine. You can see here, this is a spoon that doesn't have any sanding on it, and it did completely fine. So I didn't really need to sand, but I wanted to test for myself if I needed to sand the spoons before applying anything to them. So this is the spoon that I sanded with 180 grit. This is the lowest grit that I have. So I sanded it, and then I put some primer on it, and you can see that the finish, you might not be able to see it. I have some close-up images that I might put here if they're necessary. But you can kind of see that the surface is not good when I sanded it to 180. And so going up to 280, it's still not good. It's a lot better, but it's still not good. But it is a lot better. Going up to 400, it's looking a lot better. And this might actually be able to, since this is sanded to, it's really rough though to the touch. It is really rough. So sanded up to, I sanded it with 400, then applied 1500 grit finisher. So, well, primer, sorry. And it's really rough. So I wouldn't use this, but you can still sand it and get some use out of it, right? And then 600 grit. This is a lot better, but the surface is still feeling rough. You cannot tell. You can, for the most part, you can't tell. But it is really rough, the surface. Then 800. And I need to be careful here because I'm gonna stop touching them all over, because these are actually the spoons that I'm gonna use for painting. So on the right side, I'm gonna be touching them on the right side. But you can see that this is actually really smooth. Compared to the other ones, this is really, really smooth. And then if I touch it on the right side, it feels smooth. And it feels like it has paint on it. So it's not like I just didn't apply enough of it. So it doesn't rough up, but it just feels smooth. So, okay, this is the 0. Going from 800 to 1000, it's a lot smoother. And this is now what I would consider to be good and ready for painting, right? Because it's super smooth. I might have needed to apply a little bit more paint. Yeah, I think I needed to apply a little bit more paint on some spots on the left side, but either way, it feels really smooth. Sanded and then applied the 1500 grit primer. It's nice. The 1200, similar thing. It just feels good. Super smooth. And then 1500. It's the same grit. I sanded it with the same grit as the finisher is gonna be. Sorry, the primer. I keep reading the name on the bottle. So this is really nice also. So I would say that from 1000 up, it's gonna be really nice. So 2000 is also really nice. 2500, yeah, 2500. It's also really nice. And without sanding, without any sanding at all, it's also nice. So the question here is, would this be more durable? It's not that durable. I shouldn't have done that, actually, but with 1000... Oh no, I should have done that, because this is not... I cannot easily rip it. Yeah, you can kind of... Nah, I don't think you can see it on the camera, but in life you could see that there are marks where I'm scratching it, but it's not coming off. It's actually not coming off. This is what I wanted to test from priming it and sanding and then priming. If it was gonna grab it better. I guess it's a good test then. But yeah. Okay, this one's kind of grabbing, but I think it was just that spot. I'm actually going hard on with the nails, and it's not. Okay. But I feel like the smoother you sand it, the more you're gonna be able to grab onto it for some reason, which might be easy to explain. But I'm not a scientist or anything. So yeah, with the 0, so without any sanding, I was actually really, it was really easy to just scrape away at it with my nails, and I didn't apply much pressure. Whereas when I sanded with at least 1000 grit, it's not coming off. So I guess that's a successful test in that sense. Just means I have to sand everything now. So yeah, that's the initial test that I wanted to do. If sanding it is necessary at all, and it seems to me like yes, it is necessary to at least sand it with 1000 grit and then use primer. So what I'm gonna be doing now is with these other two primers. So I already have my spoons with the Mr. Hobby primer. I already have those spoons. And then I'm going to make some spoons with the Tamiya. And then I'm also gonna make some spoons with the Dspiae paint. I won't be spraying the primer with the Mobius 0.3 anymore. I'm gonna be spraying the primer with a different gun. Airbrush. Spray gun. I always go for spray gun, that's why I call it that. So I'm gonna be doing that. And then once I prime all of these spoons with this, I'm going to be testing them with their respective paints, right? So the Mr.Color, I need to get rid of all of this. So the Mr.Color is going to be tested with its own primer, with its own paint. Yeah, let me put it over here. Its own primer with its own paint. Then Tamiya, same thing. And Dspiae, same thing. So I'm gonna get 2 spoons on each one. 2 spoons on each one, and then I'm also gonna get a corgi bot with each one. What else? A corgi bot, and then a card of each type. A card of each type. So the total would be 2 spoons, a corgi bot of each kind. I'm not gonna use the clear one. There's no point in it. Then I'll also use a Plamakojo. I didn't even say the brand of these. The Plamakojo, right? Plamakojo signs. I don't remember what they're called. Then a Dspiae card and the 2 Hobby Mio cards. And this should be all the tests I need with each one. I am only gonna be priming the spoons, and the rest is gonna go straight on. So for the Mr. Hobby primer and paint, I'm gonna be using the Mr.Color leveling thinner. For Tamiya, I'm also gonna be using Mr.Color leveling thinner. And for the Dspiae, I'm going to try to use the Mr.Color leveling thinner because I think it's an acrylic hybrid, but I don't know. It says that it's just acrylic. I don't believe it because it doesn't smell just like acrylic. But in case it does need to, I will be using a thinner for acrylics, right? So I have that there for that reason. And yeah, I hope my explanation was good enough. And the rest of the video will be painting, yeah, it'll be painting up until we have the results, and I'll bring it back here.
Okay, so hopefully you can hear me fine. I should have recorded this before I put on the mask. But right now, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be painting with the Mobius 0.3, sorry. I'm going to be applying some primers. The reason that I'm going to be applying it with the 0.3, I was flip-flopping about this in the intro, but I want to try this because I applied the Mr. Hobby primer. I applied it with this, and it was very nice. Like the coats that I was able to get, they were very nice with the 0.3. So I want to try the same thing with Tamiya's liquid surfacer, and also the Dspiae primer. So both of these are, so the Tamiya, I don't know if it's acrylic or lacquer, but it does thin out with the Mr.Color leveling thinner. And the Dspiae, it says that it's acrylic, but it doesn't smell quite like acrylic. So I was thinking that it's something like Tamiya's hybrid acrylic lacquer. So I'm gonna try it out with the Mr.Color leveling thinner, see if it works. And if it not, I'll switch to another different kind of thinner. So let's go ahead and get started with this. Well, let me bring the spoons. Okay, so what I've done with these spoons so far is very simple. I've sanded them with 1000 grit sandpaper, and then I put them into an ultrasonic cleaner to clean out, and then I put them into a dehydrator to dry out all the water. So they've gone through the entire process, and they should be ready to prime. So over here, I already have the primers mixed up. So this is Tamiya, and this is Dspiae. So one thing to note is that the Dspiae primer, it doesn't seem to have, it seems fine. I don't know if you can see it quite clearly, but it's not acting like an acrylic would when you put thinner on it. It seems completely fine. It's not making clumps or anything. So I think it's going to be fine to spray. So let's go ahead and get started with Tamiya's first. My compressor should be set to 12.5, I think, psi, continuous psi. So I have my Tamiya over here. Let me spray some lacquer thinner first to see if my what's it called, airbrush is fine. So let me spray some lacquer thinner. Make sure my airbrush is fine, make sure my mask is correctly put on. So after I check everything, I'll start painting. Sorry, yeah. I think I didn't clean it correctly the last time. So I don't know if you can see me, but I'm just using a brush to clean it. Because I don't know if I cleaned it correctly the last time, if I'm honest. And then I also need to get used to working on all this stuff. Okay, so let me spray this. Oh, you can even see it on the video, but it looks plenty fine. Okay, good enough. Alright, primer's loaded. Just gonna get all the dirt bits out of it. There's a very fine layer on it right now. You can barely see it. So let me go a bit harder on it. Yeah, I don't think it's spraying. It's not spraying correctly, I don't think. Okay, well that's a very heavy layer on it. But I don't think I should be spraying it with this gun. With this brush, with this needle, right? You can see that I'm getting a bunch on my fingers, so... It is spraying it. I can barely tell. Tamiya, the color in the Tamiya is very faint. You can tell in comparison with another spoon that it's on, but it's very faint. It's not that bad. It did spray it, but I don't... It feels like it's struggling a little. Gets it done, but it feels like it struggles a little. Alright, so for the second one. It might have also been because I didn't clean it correctly. And that can also be the cause. Okay, so it has a very fine layer right now. Gonna help it dry, and then I'll go in for the heavy layer. Alright, should be fine. Oh, I shouldn't have gone so hard. Okay, there we go. I wanted to just get the last bits of paint in there. Yeah, this looks fine. I don't think I should be using the 0.32 spray. Having said that, I already did, so I'll put this beside here. Alright, so now we need to clean this. One good thing about the Mobius is that it's so easy to clean the little cup at the top. It's so easy to clean it. Just with this brush, it's more than enough. Just go in, swirl around the brush, and it's done. It's good as new. Okay, now for the Dspiae primer. Let me do this quick because the camera's overheating and I can tell you why. The temperature in this room is not very nice. So let's go ahead and try and spray this. Okay, this comes out immediately. You can tell. Damn straight. Okay, that's one layer. I'll go heavier on the next layer. I think I could have thinned this a lot more. I mean, it's working nice right now, but I could have thinned this a lot more. Back to the first. I don't know, it's so weird. Because it came out immediately. Heavy as hell. back to the second. Okay, you can clearly tell that this one has primer on it compared to a regular spoon. I don't have a regular spoon with me. The Tamiya one, I'm pretty sure I sprayed it just as well as the Dspiae, but because the primer is so faint, you can barely tell. So just to show you one last time before I start painting them, just to show you the comparison between the two. On the left is Tamiya primer, and on the right is Dspiae primer. And they are both thinned with Mr.Color leveling thinner. So I'm actually surprised that the Dspiae was able to be thinned with that, because it says that it's an acrylic paint, right? So on the bottle it says clearly acrylic paint, but it seems to be thinned just well with the Mr.Color, Mr. leveling thinner. Yeah. So yeah, next time next time we come back, it'll be for painting the actual colors. But I need to leave these ones to cure for at least 12 hours because I did so with the Mr.Color primer. So we'll wait at least 12 hours before coming back and doing the rest.
Alright, so on the last segment I made the mistake of masking up and then trying to explain stuff. So this time around, let me explain before I start. I'll explain what I'm gonna do. So with me I have a little bit of paint from Mr. Hobby. I have the Mr.Color C3 thinned with Mr. Leveling Thinner, sorry. The names are so weird for Mr. Hobby because they all have their own special unique name. So yeah, it's paint thinned, Mr. Hobby's paint with Mr. Hobby's thinner, right? So this should work fine. What I'm gonna be doing is I'm going to be painting over the spoon that I had primed before, then 2 Plamo Kojo signs, and then also 2 Dspiae little corgi butts. So everything has been treated the same. For the spoons, what I did was I sanded it with 1000 level grit, then I primed it. The primer, in this case, the primer is Mr. Hobby primer with Mr. Leveling Thinner as a thinner. So the treatment for all the spoons that I'm going to be using is the same. Sanded with 1000, primed with the respective primer. Sorry, sanded, cleaned, dried, and then primed. Everyone with their respective thing. So for example, I have the other 2 spoons over here. So this one was sanded with 1000, cleaned, so washed, dried, and then primed with Tamiya. And then the same for this one, 1000 level grit, washed, dried, and primed. So the spoons all went through the same treatment. And for the signs and the corgi butts, they also had the same treatment in the sense that I just put them into the ultrasonic cleaner and then dried them. That's it. I'm not priming this. I'm gonna spray straight onto them. So yeah. And I've cleaned the Mobius 0.3. I'm gonna be doing a little bit of a test before I start actually painting, but it should be fine. As far as before going in, I'm going to be trying to dust everything to make sure that there's no dust particles, but any mistakes, it's fine. I'm not gonna be too anal about it. So let me go ahead and mask up so I can start painting.
Let me go ahead and pour the paint onto this. Hopefully I don't spill any. I hate how much is left on the tin. I might just start pouring it directly into the... pouring directly into the cup. That's not quite right. Do I need more pressure? Alright, that's a heavy ass coat. So it should be fine. Where do I put it? Over here. Alright, now to start with, let's start with the Plamo Kojo. Alright, that's one coat. Very light coat. This next Plamo Kojo sign. So we can be working on both. Let me clean this one though. Okay, I keep having issues with the camera. But here's the results from painting the Plamo Kojo white sign. White cream, you know. It's not exactly white, but it's creamy. So it looks more like a gray primed sign. And this is the black one. So that's the results from painting those. I'm gonna go ahead and try and paint the corgi butts. Let me check if this is more or less centered. Yeah, like that's fine. One sec. Oh yeah, I didn't mention, but I had to get some more paint in the cup. I'm not gonna bother with mixing them outside of the cup now, because yeah, it's just I think it's a waste of paint at that point. Alright, let me go back to the black. I didn't cover this well enough. Alright, and that's all the paint that I have for Mr. Hobby. I think it looks good though. The corgi bud looks good. The white corgi bud looks better than the other one. And now I need to wait for those to dry a little so that I can take them off that skewer, because I didn't ready any other. Good thing for me is that I need to clean the brush. Oh, I need to clean the brush, so I'll be right back. Okay, here we go, round 2. This time though, it's gonna be Tamiya Red paint. So same thing as before. This is sanded, washed, and dried. So the same treatment, and here we go. I'll leave it at that pink and go on to the next item, which is gonna be a plamo. Okay, I need to clean that. Okay, that's one layer. It's a decent layer. Just get it all pink. Now for the second plamo, I'll just go ahead and start. Color is much different. So while on the white, the first layer is just to get it pink. On the black is to get it brownish. Then onto the corgi butts. Same thing, get it pink. This one's a female corgi butt. There we go, so get it pink, that's the first layer. And I'm gonna, well, I'll finish up with the second corgi butt. a lot harder to see on the black butts, but this one looks fine to me. Alright, so, oh no. They are hard to put down, the corgi butts, because they'll roll over. Alright, back to the first spoon. I mean, to the Tamiya spoon. Okay, I think that's enough. That should get all the color through. And I'm running out of paint again. Maybe I'm laying it too hard. I don't think I am though. It looks fine to me. Anyone with more experience will be able to tell me if I'm laying down too much paint. But I think the answer, when it comes down to are you laying enough paint or too much, too little, it comes down to does it look like you want it to look, right? So this looks good to me, and it didn't take as much paint as the other ones, but I do need to re-up on the paint a little. And also the Tamiya paint seems to be very thin already. Very expensive hobby. Not really. I mean, per model, it's not gonna be that expensive. But if we think of all the stuff that you need to buy to get started, yeah, kinda expensive, huh? Okay, that's enough. Actually, that's more than I should have put. I think it's running. You can see it runny towards the edges. So in this occasion, I did put more than necessary, because you can see that it's runny towards the edges. But oh well. Now onto the corgi butts, the white one first. I think that's enough. It looks pretty red on all sides. Looks good to me. I hate putting the corgi butts down because they just roll over. And I didn't get the base. There's a base to put them. Well, actually I can put them down here, I guess. This has a base on it. But I didn't get an extra base on the outside so that I can put them there. No, I think I messed up. Yeah, I messed up. Alright. Either I messed up or this corgi bot's behaving differently, but yeah, it's odd. It's odd for sure. Getting into those little crevices there on like the fingers and all that, that's gonna be really hard. So I'll leave it at that on this corgi bot. It's not the best testing piece so far. I mean, all those little crevices on the toes, yeah, I think those need to have some primer for it to stick well there. I don't think it's just normally gonna stick in there. Alright, so that's it for Tamiya. Next time I turn on the camera, it'll be to paint some Dspiae, so Chinese brand of paint, and see you in a bit. Alright, back again for the last time on the painting booth. I am going to be testing the Dspiae paint. Quick test before I start. Looks good. So this Dspiae paint is actually a lot thicker than the others. It's a lot thicker. Oh, I forgot to ready my corgi butts. But I was saying, the Dspiae paint is so much thicker. I've been thinning all the other paints at 1:1. So one part paint, one part thinner. But the Dspiae, I've been thinning to 1 part paint, 2 parts thinner. Same thing for the... I did the same thing for the primer, and now the same thing for the paint. So they are both very thick, which is good for me, because it means that I get a lot more use out of it. And it's not bad paint either. Doesn't seem like it. So here we go, Dspiae. Primer and paint with Mr.Color thinner. Kinda struggling. It was struggling with the primer too, with the Dspiae primer. Right, there we go. Leave it at that. Corgi butt. Yeah, I think I can thin it a lot more. Like 3 parts thinner, if any. Next, corgi butt. It's a very brown hue that it took. Compared to the other reds, this is an extremely brown hue. So I'll leave it at that. Onto the Plamo Kojos. Look, I'm able to cover it very quickly. Next Plamo. There we go. Ends up brown. Back to the spoon to get the heavy layer on it. Okay, that's very heavy. I was going purposefully heavier on this one because I wanted to see if it would end up red. But as you can see, it's not quite red, and it's because the primer itself was a lot darker than the others. But I wanted to see if I could reach that red point, but no. So I'm guessing that for Dspiae I need to use the white primer to get a good red. Well, in general, I should be using white primer, but I wanted to test gray. Okay, that's enough. Otherwise it'll get runny. I went with the Plamo, right? I should have gone with the Corgi Buds. Whatever. This one's weird on this. You can see it's starting to pull. It's not good. It's not covering the black good. I like this one more than the Plamo or than the Spoon, because this one's actually red. However, it's not like the most vibrant red. It's it looks orangish even. But maybe it's my glasses though. I'll see once I get to the bench. Yeah, okay, so this paint is a little, even, I don't know, it's weird because I feel like I can thin it more. I can both thin it more and I should not be thinning it more because it's runny. It's not covering as good as I wanted to, and it's already runny. You can see it starting to pull in the crevices, right? So I've definitely gone too hard on the paint on this one, but then it doesn't look like the others. So this paint in particular, the color red, it's not the best for getting just a straight red, you know. And then I wanted to do another go at this one because it doesn't seem like it took. No, it took. It's not changing the color. Yeah, so same thing for the Plamo. It looks extremely brownish, like a rust color even. And I have to guess that it's just the paint itself, right? Doesn't lend itself to dark primers or like dark colors beneath. I don't remember what the word for that is. But on a cream piece, so the Plamo color is like a creamy color, it looks good. And on the white Corgi butt, it also looks good. Doesn't look like it pulled a lot. Like I only covered it enough to get the color through. So it looks good. It looks good on this. But on the darker colors, it doesn't look that good. Oh no. I let it touch something. Let me just cover that. Alright, whatever. So on the darker colors, it just, I don't know. It doesn't look right. But yeah. Other than that, I think I still think it's a good paint because of how thick it is. So I thinned it a lot. And I still feel like I can thin it more. But so far so good. So next time I see you, I'm gonna clean the airbrush and then I'll see you on the bench.
Alright, back at the desk. So there's a lot of learning that happened when I was painting, and I don't know if I mentioned this earlier, but it's the first time that I'm painting with lacquer paints. So that was the idea here, that I would test all these lacquers, and I did learn a lot. So the main learning that I had from this is that even though I followed, so this is the Mr.Color spoons, even though I followed all the recommendations for thinning, for everything, there's one clear thing here to me, is that temperature of where you're working does have a very high level of importance, because even though I thinned it correctly, I let it sit for far too long. So this is what the tin where I was working on looks like. It's all just caked in there. It's because I let too much time pass between preparing the paint and actually putting it into the airbrush, right? So the temperature in that room where I'm working is very high compared to other places, I'm guessing. So yeah, temperature plays an important part. So I need to play around with thinning the paint. It doesn't feel bad to the touch, but I don't think it looks quite right. I don't know if you're able to tell in the camera, but it doesn't look quite right. So I need to work on that. I need to work on thinning. I might need to add a little bit more thinner just to have no issues with the temperature, right? The same thing happened with Tamiya, where I think it could be better, but either way, I get a good idea of the color itself, right? So here we see the Tamiya spoons. This is just with the primer and then with the paint on top. Same thing for Dspiae. So Dspiae's primer, great primer, is a lot darker than the others. So the color comes out much more like a brown rust kind of color. Okay, so those are the spoons. Let me put them together so we can look at them. So there you go. It's from left to right, Mr.Color, then Tamiya, then Dspiae. This is their own primer, their own red with their own primer. So in the case of Mr.Color, it's C3. In the case of Tamiya, it's X7. And in the case of Dspiae, it's AG-03. So okay, those are the spoons. Let me put them all with their own. Those are the spoons for each one. And then if we go and look at I'm gonna look at Plamo Kojo first. So Plamo Kojo signs, I really like these ones because they have very different surfaces. So here is where you can much more clearly see the difference between the three paints. The Mr.Color paint is a lot, I feel like it's darker. And Tamiya is in the middle, right in the middle. Whereas the Dspiae paint looks a lot more orange than red. And Dspiae does have another red that is called China Red, I think, which is very bright red. So it makes sense that this would be different, but I didn't expect it to be this orange looking. So yeah. Anything else remarkable about this? If you look at the Tamiya one, you can see the clear difference between the surfaces on the Plamo Kojo. So you can see that it coated the gloss surface very nicely. The gloss flat surface and then the gloss curved surface. And then on the matte finish of this Plamo, you can see that also coated everything very nicely. So it looks really nice. I really like this Plamo Kojo signs. For Mr.Color, I don't think I got the results I wanted. See, the gloss surface looks pretty similar to the matte surface. So I need to do a lot more testing with this lacquer paints before I start painting my models, but I think this is a very good first run. So had a lot of fun painting for sure. And then just to take another quick look at the Dspiae, you can see the difference in the surfaces. Looks pretty good. I mean, the coverage looks really good. It's just that the color itself is not what I would expect from a red. And I'm not sure, I don't think it's my fault on that one. But I'll give you here another look at that black Plamo Kojo. So this one is a lot harder to paint because I don't know when I've applied enough paint, but you can clearly tell here on this Dspiae one that I just didn't apply enough paint. I think I needed to apply a lot more paint to properly cover, but then at that point it starts to run. So the paint started to run. So my guess is that on this case, if I want to cover a dark surface, I just need to do more layers rather than what I was doing, which was a very fast thin layer and then a second layer, a second heavy layer, right? That's what I was doing. So I'm guessing if I want to cover darker surfaces, I'm gonna need to do many more layers rather than just 2 and the second one being heavy, because it looks runny. It looks like it ran towards the edges. I don't know if you can catch it on the camera, but it's much more noticeable here on the Tamiya, where because I'm trying to cover the dark color, I just go overboard with the paint that I'm applying. So I don't think this was good. The color itself is fine. If that's a color that you're going for, it'll be fine, right? So this is Dspiae, Mr.Color, and Tamiya. So in that order, right? Mr.Color, Tamiya, Dspiae. So those are the Plamo Kojo signs. And now for the ones that I really like, but the hardest ones to work with are the corgi butts. So the corgi butts were really hard to work with because you need to hold them from the back. And then I had some scuffs on them when I was trying to manipulate them, I guess. So here, this is the Mr.Color paint on the corgi butt from Dspiae. And this one looks really good. It just looks good. So it tells me that towards the end, because I painted this one towards the end, and it's after I started just applying the thinner into the cup and then the paint. So that seems to me like it's gonna be the best way that I can do this, which is just to put the put the thinner and the paint directly into the cup to avoid it evaporating in the process of putting it over, right? So that's probably what I'm gonna do from now on. So this is the corgi butt for Mr.Color, and then this is for Tamiya. And this also looks great. I really have no complaints about the paints when put into a piece, right? It looks amazing. And the corgi butts are really good too. It's just, they're such a pain to work with. They're hard to hold on to while you're painting, and then they're hard to work with afterwards. And then here we have the Dspiae paint on the Dspiae corgi butt, right? So it looks good, but the same thing. It looks very orangey. So in terms of the color that I like the most, as a pure red color, well, I like Tamiya the most, right? Mr.Color is a lot darker, so this one's a lot darker than, it's a little darker than Tamiya's. And then Dspiae is definitely different. It's just different, right? So, but they're good colors and they covered fine. One thing to note, I'll get to it here in a bit. For now, let's just look at the other corgi butts. So the black corgi butts. The black corgi butts, same issue that I was saying, where I'm trying to cover them too fast, or like on too little layers, and you can clearly see it on the Dspiae. But let me go through the Mr.Color one. So on the Mr.Color one, it covered really nicely. Covered the corgi butt really nicely. And then the Tamiya one, look, I just scuffed them up entirely when I was trying to handle them around because I didn't prepare them very fine. I didn't prepare them very well. And then I saw that the paint was evaporating, so I was just like, okay, let's just get through this, right? So I ended up scuffing them a lot. The Dspiae one's also scuffed. It's like, I need to organize myself, my space, when I'm painting a lot better. So here's the Tamiya black corgi butt covered with Tamiya paint. And then the black corgi butt covered with Dspiae red paint. It's a mouthful. So yeah, I was saying that because these black colors, black bases, I was trying to cover them in much more quicker than I should have, right? If I really wanted to get good coverage on top of them and get this brownish color that comes from that, I would have needed to do more layers and just let it rest a little bit more. I think that's how I would have done it, right? I would need to do some testing. Overall, when it comes to putting red on top of a black base, the Tamiya and Mr.Color are pretty good. I think I like Tamiya more. The color itself is a little bit better, so I think I like that better. And I'm not very sure on the Dspiae paint because it just makes it look very brownish. So, okay, one thing I wanted to talk about, I've been mentioning it a lot already, but these are the tins that I was working with, and yeah, they are, they just caked over with the paint because it evaporated too quick. I tried to prepare all the paint beforehand. And it just didn't work out for me because yeah, they evaporated. So I need to be better about that going on. I'm just gonna pour the thinner and the paint directly into the cup. Like that seems to be the solution for me. So no pre-preparing the paint. Now, as far as working with the paints, Mr.Color and Tamiya, very similar. I just did 1-to-1. So 1 part paint, 1 part thinner. Same thing for Tamiya, 1 part paint, 1 part thinner. But this Dspiae is super heavy, or how should I say this? It's very thick, right? It's the consistency on it is so thick that I was doing towards the end, I was doing 1 part paint and 2 parts thinner. So this 10 milliliters here is gonna turn into 30 milliliters, right? If done correctly. So yeah, this paint is the Dspiae paint. I actually really liked it. It sprayed a little bit weird. I'm guessing I need to do more testing with it. But in terms of like just practicing with this paint or painting something that's not very yeah, it's cheap paint in that sense. You can buy a bunch of them from the AliExpress site for very cheap. So if I'm gonna continue practicing and just painting random things, I'm probably gonna be using this Dspiae just because of how cheap it is. Tamiya though, it's really good. I really liked it, very vibrant color. Thin the same as Mr.Color, so no issues there. And Mr.Color, well, this is the paint that I wanna be using for the rest of my hobby life, I guess. Because the kits come with Mr.Color painting scheme. So anytime that I can replace it, sure, I'll try to. But for the most part, I just want to learn to use it and get used to it, right? So yeah, that's my experience with the paints themselves. With using lacquer paints and all of that. That's my experience there. Hi, quick addendum. So I completely forgot that I was meant to test these little color testing cards. So I went back and I painted all of them with their respective colors. So let's take a quick look at the Mr.Color color testing cards. So one thing is clear, this is the second time that I'm painting with the Mr.Color. I still don't know quite how to thin it out properly. I fixed a lot of things with the compressor and the air pressure and all of that, but still I think I need to do a better job of thinning this because the pressure is fine. I tested it with the other 2 paints and it's fine. The other 2 paints, however, are acrylic mixtures. So pure lacquer, I'm not cellulose, I should say. This is cellulose based. So I'm still not doing well with the Mr.Color. But hey, look at this. The Dspiae color testing card looks pretty good. It's a nice, neat little thing, right? It gives you the color. Not so much the glossiness that it needs to have because of my mistakes. But yeah, you can see very clearly the differences. This is the worst one by far. You can clearly see that this did not spray correctly. So yeah, something to keep working on, right? Another thing that I went back and did was with this Mr.Color paint was give it another go at painting the spoon, and it looks a lot better now. This is after a lot of trial and error. It looks a lot better, but there's still some things missing on it, right? So yeah, doing better with that. The 2 other paints with Tamiya. So let me show you the cards with Tamiya. This look a lot better. Still a bit of issue. But they start to look a lot better. So that was the Dspiae color testing card. This is Hobby Mio. Hobby Mio has a bigger area for the white and the black. And then we see the Hobby Mio with the pink and gray surfacer. So there you go. They all together, let me put them like I had them originally. They look pretty good. You can get a good idea of what the colors are gonna end up like on your models. So yeah, pretty good. Let me put it over here, and then the Dspiae. So this Dspiae, I had the easiest time, and you can probably tell already just by looking at this Dspiae testing card. I had a much easier time with this one, and the only difference is that I thinned it out a lot more than before. So chances are I need to work on thinning out the other paints to make sure it has to be something about the temperature and how dry the environment is here. Because, hey, following tutorials, it's not working. I need to thin out the paint a little bit more. That's the moral that I got from, that's the learning that I got from all of this, because this Dspiae paint was thinned out a lot, and it poured very, it went out of the airbrush very nicely. So yeah, I really liked how it sprayed. And you can tell by how smooth the cards turned out, right? And they're all supposed to be glossy paints, so there's that. All right, now back to the past Ayden, I should say. And not lastly, there's two other things I want to talk about. So first about the Mobius gun, airbrush, the Gaahleri Premium Mobius 0.3. So I use this for everything. I wasn't gonna use it for the primers because, as far as I know, you're supposed to use a higher needle, because primer is thicker, right? Or the particles are not as minute. Is that a word? I think it is. The particles aren't as small as with the primer. Sorry, as with the regular paints. So when you're priming, you're supposed to use a bigger needle, right? And in this case, I just forgot about that, and I poured the Mr.Color primer. I just poured it in. So, and then when I started spraying it, I was like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. But it was spraying fine. So that's why I then went and sprayed all the other primers with this same gun, airbrush, and they spray fine. I really liked working with this spray. What was it called? Airbrush. Yeah, I really like working with this airbrush. So that's really good. That's really good, and I appreciate being able to do everything with one single airbrush. That's good for me. So yeah, the airbrush itself was really good. I have not disassembled it, so that's how it came out of the box. I was able to spray everything, and it worked fine. Obviously some mistakes, but I believe some mistakes were made, but I believe they are on my end as to not thinning properly, or just not working properly with the paint, right? I might have needed to go down on the pressure, because I'm pretty sure I kept the exact same pressure as when I sprayed the primer, and that doesn't seem right, you know? It's like I should have probably gone down on pressure, because the paint itself is going to be a lot thinner than the primer. So there's probably a lot of things to play around with and experiment, and I have to, right, before I start painting full kits. So I'll be doing that. But I'm very happy with the gun, airbrush. I need to stop saying gun. I'm very happy with the airbrush. It's really nice, and the thing that I like the most about this is that the trigger is just butter smooth. It's not. I had a very cheap airbrush that I was spraying acrylics with, and that was hell to work with. My finger would hurt after a while. It's my most used finger, so it makes sense that it would hurt after a while of doing something. But yeah, fingers hurting, and then my hand was just not very comfortable and everything. So this airbrush is really good. I like it a lot. And obviously their stand that I've been using, it's really nice. So yeah, that's good. And then the last thing, now the last thing that I want to talk about is, so I have this Plamacojos. I have the Plamacojos, and I have the Dspiae corgi butts. So what do I do with those, right? And for that, I have a quick answer for that. So in the case of the Plamacojos, they sell you this little binder where you can put them on. So the reason that they are like this is because you're supposed to then take your nippers and remove the post sign. The thingy, you know? You're supposed to remove it and then put them into this binder. Like this. And there you go. You got your little binder filled with Plamacojo signs to reference for your colors, right? So that's really neat, and I really liked it. I really like the thought of this. So I'll be putting all of these post signs in there for the respective colors, and hopefully in time I'll have a bunch of binders to have as reference, you know? And yeah, that'll be really neat. They also have these stickers that you put on the back, because they have here where I wrote Dspiae. I wrote Dspiae just to keep track of which one it was, but you're supposed to put this little sticker so you can have the brand and the color and all of that. So I'll be doing that at a later time to keep organized all my Plamo Kojo signposts. I need to look up the name, but they're really, really neat. So yeah, that's for the Plamos. As for the corgi butts, they also have their way of being organized, but it's much. The Plamo Kojos are very neat and small, while the corgi butts are. The corgi butts have a much bigger and a cumbersome way of organizing them. It's yeah, it's a whole book. So while I appreciate, and it's a really neat book, it's very big, and I appreciate it, but it does keep them in there. I already checked that. So you can have them in here. It's really nice. Oh, I should have sanded that one. So you can put all your butts in the book. I guess I should have put them here at the bottom. But you get the idea, right? Here, let me put them at the bottom. And it was really annoying trying to tell which one's which. So that just says Mr. C. So Mr. Color, right? It was really annoying trying to keep track of them. But you're supposed to be putting them in the book like this. And there you go. You got them. They also have this they give you this little stickers. They're just a singular sticker. So you can name your butts, I guess. You can just give a name to each corgi, something like that. I'm guessing that's the purpose anyways. And then you can just fold it over, and there you go. You got your super corgi butts. Hard to show all of that in this camera. But yeah, there you go. That's the way that you store your Plamo Kojos and you store your Dspiae corgi butts. Super corgi butts. So that's it. Alright, I think that's all. So from now on, I think I'll be practicing my painting abilities until I feel confident enough to paint a full model. And that should be a video on its own. So yeah, thank you all for watching and see you next time.